A man dressed in rags walked into the company under the contemptuous gaze of the receptionist. He had just spoken when he asked to see the chairman of the board of directors here. Hearing that, the receptionist told him to wait by the side. The man did as she said, but soon a group of security guards came out and escorted him out. The man was not satisfied, so he immediately walked towards the elevator, but was stopped by the security guard again. However, this man easily pushed the guard aside with just a light movement. Realizing that the man was not ordinary, the security captain immediately pulled out his baton and rushed over. The security captain launched a series of attacks. Unexpectedly, the man easily dodged them all. Then the man blocked the door and quickly entered the elevator. The man had gotten the employee card at some point. He took it out and opened access to the top floor. As soon as he arrived, he rushed straight into the general manager's office. The people in the room were full of suspicion when they saw him. Just then, a woman walked out of the room next door. The man recognized the two as his childhood friends. His true identity was the heir to this company. 15 years ago, Danny suddenly disappeared mysteriously. 15 years later, he returned, but no one recognized his identity as the richest young master in New York. Danny met his friend again, but before he could say anything, his friend called the security. The security team rushed in and pointed guns at Danny, so he couldn't resist anymore. Danny was kicked out of the company, so he had to return to his old house. But here he discovered that the door lock had been changed a long time ago. He looked around and saw no one, so he jumped up to the second floor. Looking around the room, Danny realized that everything here had changed. The only thing that was still familiar was the photo of them together in the past. Danny stood on the balcony, remembering the scene of the three of them playing together when they were young, and he was determined to find out the truth about what had happened. At night, Danny didn't know where to go, so he went to the park and sat under a tree listening to music. At this time, a man walked over, and this person had a good conversation with Danny. Soon, the two became friends. The man took out his phone to look up information for Danny. Danny saw the news on his phone about him and his parents dying in a plane crash. Early the next morning, Danny went to his friend Joy to explain everything, but she didn't give him a chance to say anything. She even warned him that if he continued to bother her, she would call the police. Finally, Danny had to leave. Unfortunately, a taxi rushed towards Danny, but surprisingly, he was able to jump over it easily. Joy was extremely surprised when she witnessed that scene. Danny went to the park to practice martial arts, but was mistaken for a beggar. Danny took the money to return it, but the Chinese woman did not accept it. He realized that she was posting flyers for the martial arts school, so he wanted to ask her for a job. The woman looked at Danny, seemingly not believing that someone like him knew martial arts, so she turned and left. Danny then went to his friend Ward's workplace and stole Ward's car. Ward was forced to ride in the same car with Danny. Taking this opportunity, Danny intended to talk clearly with Ward, but Ward suddenly pulled out a gun and pointed it at Danny, forcing him to stop the car immediately. Danny had to stop the car as Ward requested, but he warned Ward not to point the gun at him anymore. Ward ignored Danny's words and continued to load the gun. Seeing that Ward was stubborn and refused to listen, Danny suddenly grabbed the gun and pointed it at Ward in a flash. Danny had no intention of harming Ward. He just wanted an explanation from Ward. In the end, Ward had to tell the truth about the news 15 years ago. Danny's family was believed to have died in a plane crash in the Himalayas. Because both the plane and the victims' bodies were missing, Danny confirmed to Ward that he was Danny. Ward asked Danny to prove it, but he had no proof and could only tell stories from their childhood. However, Ward still refused to admit it, so Danny angrily stepped on the gas and accelerated the car straight towards the railing. Danny wanted to scare Ward into admitting it, but Ward was still scared and refused to admit it. Luckily, Danny braked in time before crashing into the railing. Danny had nowhere else to go, so he went to the martial arts studio, where the Chinese woman had posted flyers that morning. Danny challenged the strongest person there, but the woman flatly refused him and kicked him out. Danny had no choice but to walk out onto the street alone. At that moment, passerby suddenly pulled out a baton and attacked Danny, but he reacted quickly and kicked the man to the ground. Colleen stood upstairs and witnessed the whole scene. She was surprised because Danny was actually not as brave as he appeared. Danny looked closely at his attacker and discovered that it was Ward's bodyguard. Danny discovered that a few more of this one's accomplices on the other side of the street were pulling out their guns, so Danny quickly ran away. Danny rushed straight into a busy market, taking advantage of the crowd. Danny stopped at a roadside stall to buy a mask and then disappeared into the crowd. The bodyguards were still hunting Danny everywhere. Suddenly, Danny swooped down from above, and in just a few moves, he knocked down the bodyguard. Danny grabbed this guy's gun and quickly disappeared into the crowd again. However, another bodyguard discovered Danny's familiar figure, and he quietly followed Danny. He silently pulled out a gun and pointed it at Danny's back, but Danny counterattacked. Danny slapped him painfully and then threw him to the ground. That was Danny just giving him a warning shot and had not actually taken action. Ward was leisurely enjoying his steak when he received a call. Immediately after that, he was angry because the assassination mission he assigned to his bodyguard had failed. Ward did not expect Danny to have such high martial arts skills. Ward began to feel scared because of Danny's return. Feeling worried, Ward went to a secret place. There Ward met his father. Both of them believed that Danny's identity absolutely could not be revealed to the outside world. Otherwise, everything they owned would be threatened. What worried them most was Danny's parents, because if Danny had not died in the plane crash, it was very likely that his parents would still be alive. That meant they would lose everything. Ward's father thought that Ward had underestimated Danny, so he decided to personally handle this matter. At this time, Danny returned to the park and saw his only friend dead under the tree. Danny gently covered his friend with a blanket, but he felt extremely regretful because his matter had involved an innocent friend. Danny, Joy and Ward had been best friends since childhood, but now Ward had sent someone to kill Danny. At this time, Danny understood that he could not rely on Ward, so he decided to go to Joy again. He hoped to talk clearly with her. Unexpectedly, Joy secretly put drugs in Danny's tea, making him dizzy and everything became blurry. However, at that moment, Danny still recognized Ward coming out of the darkness. Danny woke up to find himself tied to a hospital bed, and the doctor had injected him with sedatives. Because of the effects of the drugs, Danny closed his eyes and continued to sleep. When Danny woke up, he saw a doctor sitting next to him. The doctor was still chatting with Danny for a few sentences when he suddenly picked up a fork and stabbed Danny. Luckily for Danny, at that moment, a group of doctors rushed in to hold this guy down. It turned out that he was a patient in a blouse coat pretending to be a doctor. When Danny calmed down, the doctor began to ask him about what happened to him 15 years ago. Danny said that the plane carrying him and his parents had an accident in the air. His mother came to comfort him, but at that time, the top of the plane cracked and his mother was immediately sucked out by a strong air current. When Danny woke up, he was lying in the white snow on the plane seat, and in front of him were two monks. Hearing Danny's story, the doctor found it extremely unbelievable, but still patiently listened to his story. After writing down Danny's information, the doctor left the room. Danny struggled with his thoughts alone. The next morning, Danny was sitting on the bed when the doctor brought a patient to see him. The doctor told the person to take Danny to get acquainted with the hospital environment. Only then did Danny discover that this was actually a mental hospital. The old man provoked another patient, making him angry. The patient stood up to teach the old man a lesson, but Danny only punched him and knocked him down. Danny realized something was wrong. Suddenly a group of doctors rushed in, holding Danny and tying him to the bed again. They also forced him to take a bunch of drugs. Danny fell into a coma again. The patient came to Danny again. Danny told him that I wanted to leave this place. The old man said that he could only help Danny call the relatives or friends. Then he untied Danny and secretly took Danny to make a phone call. Danny called Colleen and asked her to go to the mental hospital to bail him out. Colleen asked why she had to help him. Danny simply thought that she was the only one who didn't want to kill him. Colleen didn't want to offend the richest family in New York because of someone she only met once, so she hung up. Danny fell into despair without knowing that all his actions in the hospital were under the supervision of Ward and father. According to Danny, Ward's father sent someone to the crash site to investigate but found no temple or monk. Danny's calls were also monitored by them. Ward even went to the martial arts school to meet Colleen to get more information about Danny. But no matter what Ward asked, Colleen remained silent. In the end, Ward had to use money to bribe Colleen. Then Colleen went to the hospital to find Danny. When he saw Colleen, Danny thought she came to save him, but she showed him a document that Ward asked her to sign. This document would prove that Danny was a dangerous element that could cause him to be imprisoned here forever. Colleen wanted to know why, but Danny told her that because his identity could threaten the richest family in New York, half of their corporation's assets actually belonged to Danny. Colleen didn't want to get involved in this fight, so she took the document and left. Danny had to ask her to help him with one last thing, which was to give the file bag to Joy. Colleen went to Joy's office and gave her the file. Joy opened it and saw that it was full of candy. Joy suddenly burst into tears when she saw the candy. Joy finally believed that Danny was really her childhood best friend. Colleen threw the file with the signed document on the table and told Joy to tell Ward that she would not sign this document. At that that moment, Ward walked in and just happened to see Colleen leaving. Danny was then discharged from the hospital. The doctor gave him a change of clothes and led him out of the hospital room. But suddenly, the doctor took Danny to a dark room where 3 men were waiting, all holding wooden sticks in their hands. When they saw Danny, they swung the stick and hit Danny hard in the stomach, causing him to collapse in pain. One of the 3 men told Danny that this was a meeting gift that Ward sent him. Ward was Danny's childhood best friend, but Ward not only took over the company that belonged to Danny, but also hired someone to assassinate him. Ward even collaborated with Joy to drug Danny and put him in a mental hospital. Thinking about all the things they did to him, Danny was extremely angry. The anger that had been suppressed for so long reached its peak and was about to explode. The stream of light gathered in Danny's hand, helping him defeat all 3 thugs in just a moment. Danny put all his strength into his fist and threw a powerful punch at the iron door. The door exploded into pieces. At this time, Ward's father, Harold, was also stunned and surprised when he saw that scene on the surveillance screen. So Danny escaped from the hospital, but he had nowhere else to go, so he went to Colleen's martial arts school. Colleen didn't want to get into trouble, so she told Danny to leave quickly. Seeing Danny stubbornly refusing to leave, she beat him. The 2 people were fighting as they were getting to know each other, and from afar, it looked like they were dancing. Danny quickly overpowered Colleen and pushed her into a corner, locking her in place so she couldn't escape. As the head of a martial arts school, Colleen was not convinced. Colleen was then knocked down by Danny with a shoulder throw. Seeing that she couldn't beat him, she had to open the door and chase him away. Danny had to promise to pay Colleen a year's rent in advance and help her fix the broken door. Then she reluctantly agreed to let him stay, because Colleen also needed money. The next day, Danny returned to the house where he used to live, but now it belonged to Joy. Danny sat cross-legged on the doorstep with lots of daisies and fruits scattered beside him. Joy came home and saw that scene and was startled. But this time she didn't call the police to arrest Danny, because she knew the man in front of her was really her childhood friend. Danny. Joy sat down next to Danny. She wanted to know what he had been through all these years, but he knew that no one would believe him, even if he told them. Joy took Danny into the house. He looked around and saw that everything here was very familiar. Joy took out a document, and it was Danny's stock transfer contract. Ward offered $1 billion to buy Danny's shares in the company on the condition that Danny had to change the name and give up everything. Danny felt extremely angry at this offer because he came back not for money but to be recognized by everyone. Danny did not wait for Joy to explain, but immediately opened the door and walked out. Joy hurriedly ran after Danny. She tried to convince him that $1 billion could help him have a comfortable life, but he still did not look back and walked away. Danny was determined to prove his identity. He waited in front of a company. Then a woman walked out. As soon as Danny saw her, he followed her. The woman quickly discovered that Danny was following her, so she took out her pepper spray and aimed it at him. Danny quickly explained to the woman that he was Danny. This woman was Danny's father's former secretary. Danny recounted what had happened in the past and finally convinced her of his identity. He asked her to help him sue Ward's company. The next day, the 2 met again. This lawsuit made a lawyer who had never lost a battle like her feel awkward because Danny had no evidence to prove that he was Danny. To find his birth certificate, Danny went to the hospital archives, but surprisingly, there was a man in black inside. Danny told this man that I wanted to find the documents, but he ignored Danny. While Danny was searching for the documents, the man suddenly attacked him and took out a bottle of ethanol to burn the place down. At this point, Danny's anger had reached its peak and his energy was concentrated in his fist. He jumped up and punched the man hard. After he regained his strength, he felt a little exhausted. The man lying on the floor quickly pulled out a lighter but was kicked away by Danny. He took out a fruit knife again but was eventually stopped by Danny. He saw that he couldn't fight back, so he tried to run away but was blocked by Danny and knocked down with a punch. He quickly picked up the lighter and set the room on fire. He ran out quickly while Danny was still inside. Danny saw a woman lying on the floor, so he quickly ran over to pick her up. He carried her on his shoulder and ran out. Danny then went to the cafe to find Ward and Joy. Danny sat down and pushed Joy aside. Danny questioned Ward why he did that. Ward coldly said that Danny should have died a long time ago. Danny angrily smashed the glass, making the atmosphere tense. The 2 were about to fight when Joy quickly pushed them away, but Joy's next words hurt Danny deeply. This made him determined to claim everything he had lost. Joy said that she was not Danny's younger sister and he was not their brother. They did not welcome him. Danny turned around and left. The next day, Danny brought a lawyer to see them. The lawyer gave them a set of documents and in it asked Ward to hand over all of Danny's rights in the company, along with 51% of Danny's shares. Ward thought that Danny could not even prove his identity, but Danny's lawyer calmly took took out an ashtray from the briefcase and put it on the table. Ward picked it up and looked through it but did not understand anything. Danny told Ward to look at the bottom of the ashtray. There was a wish that Danny had written for Joy. Ward looked disdainfully and said that this could prove nothing, but the lawyer asked Ward to look closely at the fingerprint next to the words. At this time, Ward and Joy were both surprised. The lawyer said that the fingerprint on it was Danny's, and this was enough to prove his identity, but Ward still tried to argue to prolong the time. Meanwhile, the 5 lawyers on Ward's side remained silent. After that, Danny and his lawyer leisurely left while Ward was angry and couldn't do anything. That night, Danny sneaked into the building, but when he got there, he discovered that he needed a password to get in, so Danny went to the window. Danny carefully looked around and climbed up the building from the outside. Danny clung to the wall and climbed up. When he reached the top floor, Danny was about to open the window to climb inside when suddenly someone pushed him hard. Danny fell freely, but he grabbed onto an iron frame. If he fell from this height, he would definitely be crushed. Danny gasped. Danny tried to hold on for a while, but then he slipped and fell straight down. Luckily, there was a piece of concrete protruding below to support Danny. When Danny woke up, he found himself lying on the sofa in Ward's room. Ward came out with a cup of coffee in his hand. It turned out that Ward was the one who pushed Danny down. Suddenly, another man appeared. It was Ward and Joy's father. Danny couldn't believe that Harold was still alive, and the two hugged each other tightly. Harold could be considered Danny's uncle. 3 years ago, Harold had cancer, and everyone thought he had passed away. Unexpectedly, he was still alive today. The only person who knew about this was Ward. Harold asked Danny to keep it a secret for him and not to tell anyone. Danny agreed with Harold and then told Harold about the lawsuit between him and Ward. Harold asked Ward to stop the lawsuit and recognize Danny as the rightful heir. Harold forced Ward to return everything that belonged to him to Danny. Ward quickly stood up to protest, but Harold made it clear that this was an order, not a negotiation. Ward had no choice but to listen to Harold. After that, Harold and Danny hugged each other again. Danny was also restored as the heir to the Rand family. Danny happily walked into the elevator to leave. On the contrary, Ward's face was extremely unpleasant. The two stood in the elevator with an extremely tense atmosphere. What Danny didn't expect was that Ward warned Danny that you had to be careful with my father. After Ward finished speaking, he walked out of the elevator, leaving Danny with a bewildered expression. The next day, Danny dressed neatly and confidently walked into the company. At this time, Joy was being forcibly taken away by a group of people. Seeing Danny enter, Joy shouted for help. Danny quickly rushed forward, grabbed the leg of a kidnapper and broke it. Ward quickly restrained him. The kidnappers saw that Danny knew martial arts, so they pulled out a small axe from his waist. Seeing that, Danny also got into a fighting stance. The axe continuously slashed at Danny, but he easily dodged it. Kidnapper jumped up to slash Danny, but hit the ground. Danny turned around and kicked him down. As soon as the elevator arrived, they quickly pulled Joy in. Another kidnapper jumped up and spun around a few times before attempting to attack Danny, but was kicked down. Seeing that the elevator door was about to close, Danny rushed forward and used both hands to push the door open. Danny successfully entered the elevator. The elevator door slowly closed, and Danny rushed into battle with the 3 kidnappers inside. Although the space was cramped, it still did not affect Danny's flexibility. When the elevator door opened, all of them had been neatly handled by Danny. One of the kidnappers turned to tell his accomplices to return to Black Heaven, and they quickly ran away. Danny took Joy to the martial arts school to find Colleen and asked her about Black Heaven. Colleen said that Black Heaven was Brad Moo's territory. Brad Moo was a very large gang in the area, so Danny decided to negotiate himself. Danny went to the Black Heaven restaurant in Chinatown. Danny went up to the 2nd floor and went straight to the reception desk and asked the receptionist to call their boss to meet him. Seeing Danny's overwhelming aura, she quickly signaled the waiter to leave first. Then a group of people with canes pushed the door open and walked out. In front of Danny were the people he had beaten up earlier. Suddenly, a bald old man walked in. He was Adam, the man in charge of this place. Danny asked him why he sent someone to attack Joy. Adam told Danny that Joy was the one who robbed his horse first, but Danny thought that Joy was forced and manipulated. Adam felt very confused because in New York, who else could force the Rand Corporation? Danny only said a name, and Adam was stunned. Then he quickly apologized and quickly left. Danny used Chinese to say that he wanted them to get out of his territory. Then, Danny returned to the martial arts school and reported that the matter was resolved. Danny suddenly held Colleen's hand, causing her to jump back in surprise. It turned out that Danny just wanted to help Colleen fix her dislocated joint, so Colleen had to give him her hand. Danny rubbed her hand while deliberately prolonging the time so that he could touch it a little longer. After Danny rubbed it for a while, Colleen's hand returned to normal. Then Danny led Joy out of the martial arts school. At this time at the Black Heaven restaurant, Adam was having dinner with his subordinates when suddenly a group of masked men rushed in. They came to find the person who beat Joy. A bald man stepped out to confess, then another man in black stepped forward. The bald man was about to attack when he was slashed straight in the head by a knife and fell to the ground. Only then did Adam's group realize that they were the ones who robbed their port. This group of people was called the Hand. Meanwhile, at the Rand Enterprises building, the business tycoons were having a closed meeting when suddenly the conference room door opened. Everyone turned their heads to see Danny confidently walk in. The atmosphere became awkward. Danny walked to the conference table and pulled out a chair to sit down naturally. Everyone looked at Dan curiously, but even the CEO, Ward, just bowed his head and did not dare to say anything because Danny was a shareholder holding 51% of the corporation's shares. The meeting continued. Rand Enterprises had just successfully researched a new anti-parasitic drug. The market for this drug stretched across South America and even Eastern Europe. When pricing the product, a woman told everyone that the cost of producing each vial of the drug was only about $1. A man suggested setting the price at $50 in the hope of making a huge profit. Danny suddenly objected because he thought that life-saving drugs should not be priced that high, but Ward said that was the way business was. Danny announced that he would sell at cost price, which shocked everyone in the conference room, but no one dared to object. Danny firmly stated that he could not profit from other people's pain. Ward reminded Danny that as the largest shareholder, the first day should not be too ostentatious, but he did not care. Danny said that he was the largest shareholder, so he had the right to make decisions. In the end, the plan was carried out according to Danny's words. That day, Danny was exercising at home when he suddenly heard a knock on the door. Danny looked through the peephole but saw no one outside. Danny opened the door and found a box on the ground. Opening the box, he found a piece of paper and a package of white powder sent from Adam. Danny went to the CEO's office to see Ward and put the package of powder on his desk. This was transported through the port that had just been bought by the Rand Corporation not long ago. Danny suspected that there was an insider in the company. It was very possible that this insider belonged to the dangerous criminal organization, The Hand. Ward did not believe Danny's guess and thought that this was Danny's business and had nothing to do with him. Danny went to the martial arts school to find Colleen. As soon as he entered, he winked at Colleen. She knew for sure that he had something to ask for again, but she still greeted him happily. Danny told Colleen that there was something to discuss and that he had already ordered food, so the two of them could eat and talk. Right after that, two waiters came in carrying tables and chairs, which made Colleen feel confused. Danny signaled for them to put them down. Seeing the food laid out on the table, Colleen had to sit down and eat first. Her student, Claire, also came over and wanted to eat with them. She said that she had never eaten restaurant food like this before. Danny wanted to refuse, but Colleen agreed for him. On the table was a 2-month-old roasted pigeon. The three of them sat down and ate a romantic candlelit dinner. Because Claire was there, Danny kept wanting to say something to Colleen, but then stopped. By this time, Claire was already full, so she understood and stood up to leave. Before leaving, Claire didn't forget to bring a few boxes of food. After Claire left, Danny told Colleen about his problem. Currently, Rand Corporation has an insider, and that person has taken advantage of the company's port to transport illegal goods. If this thing is leaked into the market, it will harm many people. Danny wanted to ask Colleen to help him handle this case, but before he could finish his sentence, she stood up and was about to leave. Colleen didn't want to get involved in this matter. However, Danny knew that Colleen needed money, so he followed her and begged her. He convinced her that she was just a poor karate teacher and that he would waive all future rent for her because he had bought the whole building. At first, Colleen was a bit angry, but after thinking about it, she agreed to help Danny. The two of them sneaked to the port at night and saw that there were many guards there. The two of them were almost discovered. They climbed on top of the container, and Danny secretly used his phone to record their transaction. Danny wanted to find out what they were transporting, so he sneaked into the truck. While he was still searching, the staff didn't notice and closed the door. Seeing Danny locked inside, Colleen quickly ran over and knocked down a guard. Then she quickly jumped into the car and chased after Danny. Danny discovered a door in the truck. He opened it and was surprised to see someone watching football inside. This person told Danny that he was a chemist. At this moment, another person on the sofa stood up. Danny knew at a glance that this person was not a good person. This man pulled out a gun and shot Danny, but he quickly threw a frying pan at this person, causing the gun to fall to the ground. The two people rushed into a fight. Suddenly, the other person stabbed the scientist who was standing there. After knocking down his opponent, Danny quickly ran to help the scientist, but the wound was so severe that he was about to die. Danny put his internal energy into his fist. A punch broke the door of the truck. Seeing Colleen still following closely behind, Danny jumped down with the scientist in his arms. Colleen held them firmly before pulling the car over. They helped the scientist into the car and took him to Colleen's martial arts studio. The scientist's injuries were extremely serious, but he could be an important figure in this case and certainly knew a lot. The next day, Ward and Danny did not go to work but drove around the abandoned warehouses. Danny entered a warehouse and saw a truck parked inside. There were also fist marks left by him on the truck, so this was the truck they were looking for. Then the two of them joined forces to open the truck door. Suddenly a human head appeared inside. Ward was scared and backed away, then quickly pulled out his phone to call the police. But after thinking it over, he decided not to do so because he was afraid that this would affect the image of his company. Danny approached and bowed his head to take a closer look at the head and saw that this was the person who fought him last night. Because he couldn't stop Danny from escaping, he was brutally murdered by that criminal organization. Danny took the matchbox from his mouth and saw a line of words on it. It was a challenge letter from the hand to Danny. After returning to the martial arts school, Danny told Colleen everything, including that the hand would send their strongest person to deal with him. If he could defeat the opponent, they would agree to leave his territory. If Danny lost, they would send him to the other world. Danny thought this was a small matter, but Claire standing next to him could only shake her head. She thought he was bragging, so Danny walked up to Claire and told her to shut up. She angrily left. Danny started practicing to prepare for the duel. At this time, Colleen walked up and Danny said he definitely wouldn't lose. Colleen looked at him worriedly and said that if he lost, he might lose his life. Danny shook his head and told Colleen not to worry and showed absolute confidence. When dusk fell, Danny arrived in front of the large yard and pushed the door open to enter. At this moment, the door suddenly closed automatically and an old woman in white slowly walked in. She politely clasped her hands to greet Danny and told him that if he failed in this challenge, he should not interfere in her business anymore. Danny agreed and followed the old woman into the fighting area. Danny's two opponents held knives to cut their hands and let the blood drip onto the ground. Then they walked around the yard to let the blood flow in a circle. If anyone stepped out of the circle, they would be considered to have lost. The old woman hit the ground hard with her stick and then the match began. The three of them got ready, 2 against 1, and holding a knife was too unfair for Danny. After a while of fighting, Danny was quickly knocked down. At this moment, the image of Danny's master appeared with words of encouragement for him. Danny was inspired, so he jumped up and this time dealt with the two opponents more easily. They had no chance to counterattack, so they tried to make Danny waver. Danny rushed forward but was knocked down again, and the image of his master appeared again to continue to encourage him. He felt himself full of strength, so he strongly jumped up from the ground to avoid the knife stab. Then he threw a powerful kick that knocked one opponent to the ground. Then this guy completely lost the ability to fight. Danny continued to break the other guy's arm and threw another punch to knock him out. In the end, Danny won, and it was all thanks to his master's encouragement. He turned to look at the old woman, but she just kept silent and didn't say a word, and turned around to leave. Then Danny and Colleen climbed into an abandoned factory. He saw a guard standing guard, so he threw a rock to distract him. Hearing the noise, the guard turned to the left to observe, but Colleen approached from behind and broke his neck in a flash. 2 people carried his body and hid it inside. This place was a chemical factory, specializing in the production of drugs for export. They began to search everywhere, while Claire stood outside on guard duty. Claire raised her binoculars to observe and saw Mrs. Zinn returning with her bodyguards. Claire ran back to the car to call to report the news, but couldn't find the phone. Finally, Claire pressed the car horn to alarm. Danny heard the noise and quickly found a place to hide. Mrs. Zinn and her subordinates were entering when they heard the continuous sound of the car horn and felt something was wrong. She ordered her subordinates to go out and check. The guard ran towards the car. Claire saw that the situation was not good, so she stepped on the gas and ran away. Danny and Colleen were still hiding inside. After that, they exchanged glances and started to act. Colleen had just stepped out of the alley when she was discovered by a woman with extraordinary temperament. The woman threw down her hat and rushed forward as soon as she saw Colleen. Colleen also drew her weapon, ready to fight. The two of them rushed at each other and an intense sword fight began. The woman gradually gained the upper hand. Colleen accidentally dropped her weapon. At that moment, Claire also drove her car and rushed in. Claire got out of the car, picked up her weapon, and threw it to Colleen. Colleen immediately counterattacked and delivered a strong punch that knocked the woman unconscious. Meanwhile, Danny walked to the door and saw a man sleeping on the ground. Danny thought it was a beggar, so he took out some money and told him to find another place to sleep. The man said that if he wanted to enter, he had to step over my body first. Then the two of them clasped their hands and saluted each other. The man took the initiative to attack first finished with a drunken fist, making Danny feel a little dizzy. The man continued to drink, and the more drunk he got, the stronger his attacks became. Danny skillfully dodged all of his attacks. After a while, Danny still couldn't gain the upper hand in the fight. After a few more rounds, Danny was kicked down by him. Danny rushed forward to attack again, but was still no match for him. Danny was thrown several meters away by a headbutt. The man fell to the ground, rolled around, and then posed as a sleeping Arhat. Then he jumped up and threw the wine bottle out, but luckily Danny dodged it. Danny threw a palm strike but didn't cause significant damage to him. The two held each other. The man was still drinking madly, so Danny threw a punch and broke the wine bottle. Seeing this, he started to get serious and launched a series of punches straight at Danny. Danny was beaten until he spat out blood. The man looked at Danny with a provocative gaze. Danny then counterattacked and kicked him, causing him to hit the wall and fall to the ground. Seeing his nose bleed, he picked up the wine bottle on the ground to gain more strength. Then he suddenly threw the wine bottle away, but Danny unexpectedly caught it and smashed it hard on his head. He still wanted to fight back, but Danny threw a punch that sent him flying. Danny moved forward, sat on top of the guy, and continuously punched this guy as if he had lost his mind. Colleen ran over and told Danny to stop. Only then did Danny wake up from his anger. At that moment, Mrs. Zinn suddenly appeared. Danny had no intention of hurting anyone. He just wanted to know the truth about his father from her. Mrs. Zinn was extremely calm and ordered her subordinates to deal with them. During the fight, a bodyguard accidentally stabbed his comrade. Their weapons were poisoned, so the two of them died from their own poison. Danny saw the signs of poisoning on the bodyguard and remembered the ball scene of his father in the past. Finally, Danny understood that it was Mrs. Zinn who killed his father. Danny was extremely angry, and Mrs. Zinn began to feel scared. Danny clenched his fist, put all his strength into his hand, and threw the strongest punch he had ever had. The wall behind him crumbled into dust, but Mrs. Zinn was still unharmed. Danny did not take her life, but only captured and took her away. Mrs. Zinn was taken back to the martial arts school and tied to a chair. Her face was still calm as if nothing had happened. Everyone began to discuss how to deal with her. Claire suggested handing her over to the police, but Danny did not agree. Danny wanted to know the truth about his father's death first. Mrs. Zinn was confused as to why Danny was so determined to know what happened 15 years ago. Seeing her stubbornness, Danny angrily threw a threatening punch, but she did not even blink once. After all, Mrs. Zinn is the leader of the hand, so she is not the type to be easily intimidated. Claire pulled Danny aside because she did not agree with this method of interrogation. Even Colleen sided with Claire. This made Danny a little angry. The two of them just wanted to quickly end this matter, making Danny feel helpless. At this moment, Claire suddenly remembered that the Rand Corporation had a drug that could make people tell the truth. As long as they had it, they could force Mrs. Zinn to tell the truth. Danny asked Colleen for her opinion. Colleen glanced at Mrs. Zinn and agreed to this proposal, so Danny sneaked into the company to get the drug. Here, Danny coincidentally met Alice passing by. When she saw Danny, Alice said that the company had banned him from entering. Danny quickly begged her for help because he was the general director of the company before. Alice asked Danny to keep this a secret and helped him find the drug. After Danny got the drug, he returned to the martial arts school. Claire drew the medicine into the syringe and injected it directly into Mrs. Zinn. After a while, the medicine seemed to start working, but Mrs. Zinn said that she didn't feel anything. Claire told them to wait a little longer, but before she could finish her sentence, Mrs. Zinn suddenly felt dizzy, so the medicine had started working. Danny began to question Mrs. Zinn, but she had only said half a sentence when she suddenly fainted. Danny thought that the medicine had not worked. At this moment, Colleen walked out of the room and suddenly collapsed. Danny rushed over to check and discovered that Colleen's arm had been poisoned. Colleen was breathing heavily, in a critical condition, while Mrs. Zinn next to her laughed quietly. Actually, she was fine. It was all an act. Colleen told Danny to go find her master because only he had a way to save her. Danny called, but no one answered, and in the end, they could only leave a voicemail. They sat in the martial arts studio waiting for a response. Danny stood by and watched Colleen helplessly. A moment later, a man suddenly appeared at the door, claiming to be Colleen's master. Before letting him in, Danny asked a few questions to check his identity. He was Bakuto, Colleen's martial arts master. Bakuto came to Colleen's side and gently caressed her face. Danny stood next to him, feeling a little jealous. Bakuto told Danny to quickly save her, which made him feel confused. Bakuto told Danny to summon his iron fist. Although Danny didn't know what was going on, he still did as Bakuto was told because he wanted to save Colleen. Danny went to Colleen and focused all his energy into his palm. His fist began to glow brightly. Then Danny opened his hand, placed it on the poisoned area, and used his internal energy to burn the poison. Colleen screamed in pain while Danny used all his energy to circulate his energy. In no time, all the poison in Colleen's body was cleansed. After Colleen recovered, she and Danny followed Bakuto to his base. Thanks to Danny's careful care, Colleen's health improved a lot. Danny was taught by Bakuto how to control his chi better, and then the two practiced together. Bakuto told Danny that this martial arts school had taken in many people. Bakuto not only taught them martial arts, but also guaranteed them jobs in many different industries after graduation. Bakuto asked Danny if he was interested in joining, but he politely refused because he was the richest tycoon in New York. Bakuto then led Danny into a room and used the computer to open a video. In the video, the master of Iron Fist was killing invaders. The purpose was to let Danny understand the origin of the Iron Fist. Bakuto said that the successor of Iron Fist was the only one who could concentrate all his energy into his fist to form an unstoppable weapon. After watching the video, Danny began to wonder why Bakuto was so interested in Iron Fist. Danny then sneaked into a room guarded by guards. When no one was paying attention, Danny jumped up and grabbed a ladder to climb inside. Then he went down the stairs to a room and saw a woman being held captive inside. It was Mrs. Zin, the leader of the Hand. She walked in front of the video screen and implied that people around Danny could not be trusted. This made Danny angry, thinking that she was trying to manipulate him again. Suddenly, Bakuto walked in. Seeing Danny, Bakuto took him back to the room. Danny found Colleen and told her all his doubts. Danny said that there was a knife in Bakuto's room. What was special was that Danny had seen that knife before. It was the Hand's specialized weapon. Colleen was confused and didn't know what to say, making Danny suddenly understand everything. Danny stood up and shouted at Colleen. It turned out that she was also a member of the Hand. She had lied to him from the beginning. Colleen tried to explain to Danny that they had never done anything bad and that all the crimes were caused by Mrs. Zin, but Mrs. Zin denied taking responsibility. No matter how Colleen explained, Danny didn't want to listen. Even when Colleen reached out her hand, Danny pushed it away. He couldn't believe that it was all a trap. Meanwhile, Colleen insisted that she truly loved him. Danny said that it was the Hand that harmed his family. Colleen kept blaming Mrs. Zin. Danny thought that Colleen was making excuses, so he left angrily. That night, Danny sneaked into the control room and saw that there were many surveillance screens inside. Danny discovered that his every move was being monitored. Danny frantically destroyed all the equipment, and at that moment, Bakuto walked in. Danny angrily questioned Bakuto if this was all part of their plan, including from the moment he appeared until he arrived here. Bakuto didn't hide it anymore and told everything. Immediately after that, Danny attacked Bakuto and the two of them fought. Bakuto grabbed the weapon, but Danny easily dodged it. In the end, Bakuto still couldn't defeat Danny. The guards heard the noise and quickly pulled the alarm. Danny quickly ran away and met his senior on the way. The two were stuck in a narrow hallway. There were guards on both sides. They beat Danny up, but he jumped up and threw them all away. Before leaving, he added another kick. His senior imitated him and kicked him again. At this time, all the guards rushed out at the same time. Danny rushed straight towards the big gate, but someone suddenly jumped out in front of him. Danny looked closely and realized that it was Colleen's old student. Danny was hesitating and didn't have the heart to hurt him when suddenly someone else stabbed him in the waist. Danny's senior caught Danny and rushed towards the gate, but unfortunately for them, the gate had closed. When the two thought they couldn't escape anymore, Danny tried to summon the Iron Fist to fight a decisive battle, but surprisingly, he couldn't muster up the strength. All the guards rushed to attack two of them. Without the Iron Fist, Danny's fighting power was greatly weakened. Danny's senior also joined the fight, but they were surrounded by the guards. A soldier was excitedly watching the battle in the control room when Colleen suddenly appeared from behind and knocked him out with a stick. Then she opened the main gate. Danny saw that the gate was open and quickly rushed towards the door. Blood from the wound on his waist was still flowing. He looked to the side and found that Colleen had opened the door for him. He was about to go forward and say something to her, but was immediately pulled away by his senior. Danny was stabbed in the waist, but he didn't go to the hospital but went to Claire instead. Claire held Danny's wound tightly. If he didn't stop the bleeding in time, he could lose his life. So she thought of a somewhat gruesome way to use a stapler to stitch the wound. First, Claire used alcohol to disinfect it. Danny was a little scared but still tried to endure the intense pain. Claire said it was only a little bit more. When Danny wasn't paying attention, she stitched 8 stitches, causing him to scream in pain. But luckily, the bleeding had stopped. Claire used alcohol to clean the outside of the wound and then put on a bandage, so Danny considered the wound temporarily treated, but he still needed medicine for further treatment. Danny told Claire about Colleen's deception. The more he talked, the angrier he got. His emotions gradually became out of control. Luckily, Claire calmed him down in time. That night, they ordered a pizza, but surprisingly, the pizza delivery person was Colleen. Claire asked Colleen if she had deceived Danny. Colleen nodded. Claire didn't know what else to say, but Colleen insisted on meeting Danny to explain everything clearly. At that time, Danny was practicing martial arts on the rooftop. Danny stepped back as soon as he saw Colleen approaching. He didn't want to have anything to do with her anymore. Colleen asked about his injuries, but he coldly replied that she didn't need to worry. The injuries on Danny's body were caused by Colleen's master, but she kept trying to defend him. Danny felt confused with Colleen, so he didn't want to pay attention to her anymore. Colleen still insisted that she would be loyal to the organization and then left. However, Colleen was still worried about Danny's injuries, so she went to the hospital to ask a friend for help. Although the doctor was a bit hesitant, he finally agreed at Colleen's request. Just as Colleen was about to get the medicine, the organization discovered her. They wanted to take Colleen back to see her master. She tried to run away, but was stopped. A woman shook her head, signaling Colleen not to resist in vain. Colleen was then taken back to the organization and tied to a chair. Bakuto appeared in front of her. Knowing that Colleen was looking for medicine for Danny, he was angry, thinking that his good student had betrayed him, Hana's, so he ordered his subordinates to give her a gentle death. The two men escorted Colleen into a room, scaring her so much that her whole body trembled. The woman who was with her approached Colleen and was caught off guard, so Colleen hit her hard. She held her nose and screamed in pain. She looked in the mirror and found that her nose was crooked. At this moment, Colleen took the opportunity to untie the rope and fight them. Colleen grabbed the man's arm and broke it immediately. Obviously, the other two were no match for Colleen, so with just a few moves, Colleen defeated them. Then Colleen quickly escaped. At that moment, Danny, who was ambushing outside, also saw her. He chased after her. Colleen took the opportunity to pick up a weapon to defend herself. Seeing that, Colleen attacked Danny. He quickly dodged, but she continued to attack him. He tried to explain that he did not mean to harm her, and then rushed forward to hug her tightly. Seeing her current situation, he no longer blamed her. After that, Colleen put down her weapon, and the two hugged each other tightly. Next, Danny took Colleen to meet his senior. Davos knew Colleen's identity and had no intention of accepting her, and thought that Danny was blinded by love. Davos and Colleen were tensely confronting each other and almost got into a fight, but Danny stopped them in time. One side was the senior, and the other side was his girlfriend, putting Danny in a difficult situation. Colleen continued to attack Danny's senior, but Danny stopped her in time. Finally, Davos angrily left. Danny took Colleen to his room to temporarily hide for a while until he finished dealing with Bakuto. At this moment, Danny's phone rang, and on the other end of the line was the Ward family. Turned out that they had been kidnapped by Bakuto. Bakuto asked Danny to come alone and did not forget to shoot Joy once to threaten him. Danny knew the other party was not joking, so he got dressed and prepared to leave. Davos stopped Danny, but at this moment he didn't think much anymore. He had to go save his family. At his base, Bakuto raised his knife to slash someone, but Danny rushed in. Bakuto ordered his subordinates to handcuff Danny, and he would not continue to harm others. They took everyone to the elevator and prepared to leave. As soon as they reached the hallway, the guards in front opened the way for Danny to be surrounded in the middle. At this moment, Danny summoned his iron fist to break the handcuffs and rushed to attack Bakuto. But unfortunately, at this moment, the iron fist suddenly disappeared. Suddenly, Danny's senior appeared and threw plum-shaped darts to knock down the guards. Davos and Colleen rushed to attack the guards. The strange thing was that the guards clearly had guns but didn't use them. Next, Danny and Bakuto fought. Bakuto was indeed worthy of being Colleen's teacher, so he could fight on par with Danny. Bakuto swung his knife down, but Danny used his hand to block the blade. Colleen also wanted to imitate Danny, but couldn't block and got injured, so she had to kick the guard's groin to escape his control. All the enemies were defeated, and now only Bakuto was left. Bakuto stood up in panic and turned around to see that all his subordinates were destroyed. Bakuto hurriedly ran away, but Danny quickly chased after him. After they chased each other through several streets, Bakuto was exhausted and he didn't intend to run anymore. Danny and everyone else didn't intend to rush in and beat Bakuto up, but let Colleen fight her master one-on-one. Their matter should be left to the two of them to settle. The two fought for many rounds without any conclusion, making Danny worried and about to rush in to help, but Davos stopped Danny. Luckily, Colleen finally stabbed Bakuto in the stomach, causing him to collapse. But even when he fell, Bakuto kept cursing. Davos couldn't take it anymore, so he rushed up and killed Bakuto with a knife to end it all. The movie ends here. Goodbye, and see you in the next video.